this is a new framework for especially designed for nonprofit organizations, but I noticed that it's also applicable to all kinds of organizations. What we have done differently in this book is we simplified things. And I learned in my life that dealing with complex things, if you want to deal with complex things and chaos, you need simple solutions. So this was our purpose. We started with a very simple question. I want to share my screen with you. Okay, I know one of you is named Robert, but this is just a coincidence. So in this story, we have two heroes, Rob and Bart. They are good friends and they are planning to travel from Ottawa to Toronto, okay? And they are questioning whether risk management is necessary or not. So they have their own cars. Rob is very careful. He pays attention to every details. He follows the traffic rules. He puts his belt on. He doesn't speed and he doesn't drink before he drives. But Barb, on the other hand, she is very careless. She speeds. She doesn't pay attention to traffic, and she doesn't put her belt on. And after a couple of hours, they both safely arrive to Toronto. But on the way to Toronto, they see an accident caused by someone else. But two of them safely arrive to Toronto. So now the question is, it's obvious one of them was following the risk management practices and the other one was not, but the outcome was exactly the same. And this is really happening in business world too. So some organizations have solid risk management practices and some others don't. And when you look at the outcome, it doesn't necessarily mean that who have the risk management is more successful than the others. So what's the problem then? Why do we need risk management? I think the answer is, if there is no accident, we don't need risk management. But if there is an accident, if there is a problem, then it becomes obvious that we need it at risk management. And considering the atmosphere during this crisis, it became more important for organizations to have a risk management plan because the chances to have an accident suddenly increase significantly. So we must have a risk management practice now. And well, I mentioned this in the highlights of the presentation. Can we use risk management as a magical tool? Yeah, it is a magical tool, actually. Imagine someone, so this time our hero is Jennifer. She owns a farm, and every year she prays God to have the best apples in the town. But guess what? She never has the best apples. So she prays so much, but never gets the best apples in the town. And the reason for this is quite simple. She doesn't have any apple trees in her farm. So the first step to have apples is to have apple trees in your farm. This may sound simple, but I observed this in many organizations. They try to achieve something, but they don't have necessary resources or interest or investment to achieve that. So, but instead, they have different kinds of trees, like orange tree or something else. So they assume that if they have a tree, they will be able to get apples. But this is rarely, this is not possible, right? So, and this is what's happening. So I'm talking with lots of managers from nonprofit sector, and they say, so nobody's donating on our website. And I say, how many visitors do you have? And they say, oh, we have 2 or 3 visitors every day. And probably those 2 and 3 visitors are from their own organization. So they don't invest in social media marketing, but they expect to see some benefit from social media. So this is not happening. I know that this is a simplified, very, very simplified approach to it, but I work with big global organizations. I worked in NATO, I worked in Turkish Navy, I worked at University of Ottawa, and the practice is not quite different. Organizations have expectations, even if they don't have enough investment in that particular area. So risk management will help us to focus on what really matters. Another thing I observed very often is we try things with not having necessary resources, not performing necessary actions, and not on the right time. So if you look at this picture, so one of the athletes, she started to run early. So even if she is the fastest athlete in this group, she will not win, right? Because her timing is wrong. So this is another factor which causes organizations to fail in terms of risk management. And so in the last couple of weeks, I focused on the mistakes that are done by the organizations. So focusing on mistakes helps us to find the solutions. So it's like the diagnostic phase of a cure. So if you don't have a diagnostic, then you cannot proceed and have a solution. And then I observed 7 big sins in risk management. And you might be familiar with some of them already, and I'm sure you observe same things in your network. So the first step is waiting for normal. The first couple of weeks of this crisis was kind of romantic. So we enjoyed staying home and spending time with our families and kids and just not being responsible to too much. This was kind of a fun, but after a couple of weeks, we noticed that it's a burden. It's not sustainable. We need to adapt to the new reality. But many people and many organizations are still waiting for the previous normal to come back, but this is never going to happen. This is a cliche to say change is inevitable, but nowadays it's more important. So we need to change, and many organizations refuse to change. We assume that we can do the same things after the crisis. But I personally believe that everything will be different even after the crisis. So we must be ready for that. Not learning. So Margaret mentioned that some of her friends were refusing to use Facebook, but now they are on Facebook. So this is a learning curve. We need to learn how to use Facebook. We need to learn how to use Zoom. We need to learn how to adapt to the new parameters of this new reality. And while ignoring the change, we not only threat our sustainability, but we also miss opportunities. So this is another cliche, but I believe it's 100% true. So crisis brings its opportunities. So there are lots of opportunities, but if we are stuck at home and do nothing, then we will miss those opportunities. Slowing down the operations. So this is another sin very often in nonprofit sector and also in profit sector. They reduce their expenses, hoping that they will be able to survive until the end of the crisis. No, this is not a correct path. So being pessimistic, I know it's a cause and people die and I'm sorry for them, and we all have the risk. So this is not a good environment, but this doesn't necessarily has to make us pessimistic. We have to be optimistic for our business. We have to be optimistic for our future. And the final sin is not managing risk and pretending as if we are managing the risk. So I have seen this in all kinds of organizations. So in all of our projects, in all of our organizations, we had a risk management plan, but it was just a book. Now I'm talking a live version of risk management, which will change the strategies and the operations of the organization. I like to share, I like to use picture to explain different concepts. So we are accustomed to eat fish, okay? But in the old good days, the fish was coming on our table ready as sushi. And it was not a big deal to get the fish. But now the times change and we need to go out, go to the river and get wet to get the fish. So, I mean, going to the river, if you're not enjoying the cold water, it's a terrible thing. It's a negative thing. It's a risk for any organization. But this is the only way to catch fish. So online presence, social media presence is a big risk for nonprofit organizations because one single tweet or one single post on Facebook can ruin your reputation. So it can change everything. So in 1 second, everything you built in so many years can just collapse. So this is a risk. But on the other hand, you cannot catch a fish if you are not online. And this was happening even before the crisis. So most of the donors were moving from classical donation methods to online donations. So crowdfunding was becoming more and more popular, and many organizations, many nonprofit organizations were refusing to become online. So they had their Facebook account with 100 followers, and they thought that it was enough, but it is not enough. But it was okay, and they were not aware that they needed a change at that time because the fish was coming. But now the fish is not coming. The fish has gone. We need to go to the river to catch the fish. So before I proceed, I want to, just 1 second. Okay. So my children believes that I'm not capable to write a book, and I agree with them. So how did I write this? How wrote this book? How did I write this book? I found a very brilliant guy, and we wrote it together. So Rick Nason is a professor in Dalhousie University, and he is the smartest person I have met so far. And he's also very funny. He has experience in risk management for profit organizations. So we used his experience and we developed something for non-profit organizations. So this is the cover of the book, and this is basically the framework we are introducing. So in this book, we are introducing a whole framework for risk management in nonprofit organizations. The first layer is very simple, actually. We suggest alignment between strategies, operations, and actions. So you might think that, yeah, of course, it has to be aligned, but this is rarely the case. Even in very established organizations, this is rarely the case. So we have strategies and we have operations and actions that has nothing to do with the vision or the strategies. So this is the first step of successful risk management. The second phase was, I know you are already familiar with the level of impact and probability. Those are the two parameters used in risk management, but we are introducing a third dimension, a third parameter, which is the control. So the level of control we have over a risk. Sometimes there are some risks that we have no control over it. So we cannot manage it because it is out of our control. So this third parameter enables us to understand the three dimensions of risk management. And in our framework, we highlight the importance of stakeholder management in terms of risk management. So it's becoming more and more important and obvious that your stakeholders are part of your risk management. You cannot manage your organization without considering your stakeholders. So in this third level, we suggest to manage your stakeholders, and we use three categories for nonprofit organizations. So finally, we have the 5 layers of risk management, and we call it VISTA risk management framework. And so as you know, framework means a set of tools, metrics, models for a specific purpose. So in this framework, we have several models and metrics for different purposes in risk management. One of the tools is shown on the screen, and this is what we do differently. We measure things, and I think the measurement is the key. I want to say this when I see your faces and when you see my face. Measurement is the key of management. No matter what you do, if it is change management, measure your change. Risk management, measure your risk. Strategic management, measure your strategies. And here we try to show how we can measure risk. So we have probability dimension and the impact dimension, and the size of the circle indicates the level of control we have over the risk. And as you see, this graph has 2 sides. The side on the right side is the positive side. It's the positive risk, or in other terms, it's the opportunity. And the left side is the negative risk. So we cannot consider risk as a negative thing, because risk also includes positive outcomes. So different from the existing models, we merge negative and positive risk in one graph. So in this graph, we have risk A and then risk B. Risk A has very high probability and very high impact, and it's negative impact, so it's a negative risk. And we have very high level of control over it. So we can manage this. But on the other hand, risk B, the size of the circle is small, which means that we have very limited control over this B. So if this happened, we can react to it, but we cannot manage it compared to the risk A. As you noticed, we visualized risk, which makes it easier for decision makers to evaluate the big picture and decide where to focus. So imagine that we have this picture, and the decision makers in the organization decides to focus on the risks that are blue. So we ignore the white ones for now because we don't have enough resources, enough energy, or enough interest to focus on that. But the decision maker says those are the risks we want to focus on. So visualization is another tool that we can utilize more in the future because it makes it easier to understand a complex phenomenon. We have more data. We have more data than past. So we have all kinds of data coming from everywhere. It's a good thing, but it's also a challenge because it makes it difficult for decision makers to evaluate the big picture and make reliable decisions. So those tools as decision support systems, decision support tools, helps decision makers to understand, to see the whole organization in one single graph and make decisions accordingly. Another benefit of this approach is we can focus on single departments. Imagine that you are a member of a big organization, and so each department might have its own risk management approach, and you may want to see it in one big picture. So as this an example, you can group risks, different risks, based on departments. and you can compare different departments. So I teach at University of Ottawa, and I know I teach at different faculties at University of Ottawa, and I can observe that the management practices are not the same in different faculties. So the president of University of Ottawa, if he doesn't have such a tool, he cannot manage risk properly. But well, I can put it another way. If he has such tools, it will make my life much easier for him, and it's not subjective, right? So the one advantage of having such things is they are not subjective. When you measure, they are not subjective. So if any of you tell me that I gained a lot weight and I need to lose some weight, I, I will not feel comfortable, right? So this is not something I want to hear. But if I go to a doctor and if I go to a lab and they test my weight and they say, this is your weight, these are the values, and you need to lose weight, then it's not subjective. They measure and I trust them. I don't take it personal because it's a scientific measurement. So such tools, I mean, if I go to the president and say faculty of engineering is terrible, they are not doing well, it's an offensive judgment. But if I go with a sheet like this, suddenly it becomes objective, scientific, easy to digest, and easy to make decision afterwards. And just like departments, we can also group risks under different organizational functions. So we can say strategic risks, operational risks, financial risks, social media related risks, human resources related risks, all kinds of different parameters that are important for your organization. So we introduce a framework, but the framework is very flexible, so you can modify it and adjust it to any organization. Whatever matters for the organization, you can adjust the framework accordingly. And you can also use this approach as a strategic planning tool. So in this example, for example, this is the current situation of the risk, and we want this risk to come here. Let's say this is the social media marketing strategies of a nonprofit organization. So the probability of experiencing a risk on social media is very low because their social media presence is very low, and the impact will be very low because they don't have much visitors. But everything is on the negative side. So the organization may build a strategy to make social media an opportunity to convert social media from a negative risk to a positive risk to an opportunity. How can we have more impact on the positive side? So those are the tools. It's like a fork. Imagine someone who is trying to eat spaghetti with bare hands, okay? So this person has never seen a fork in his life. It's messy, it's tasty, but it's messy. So what we are trying to do is, and imagine one day someone brings a fork and says, you can use this to eat spaghetti. Wow, so it made life much easier for me. What is this tool? So this tool is our VISTA risk management framework. We keep it simple on purpose, just like fork. Anybody can use it without expert assistance. They don't need to hire us as consultants. They can use it by themselves. We keep it on purpose because we define ourselves as a social enterprise. But the benefit is it will make management practices less messy and more reliable. So this is the intention.